Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuh. You're watching Islamic Action TV. Bilal Ali Hugh in the hot seat. Been away for a minute, but I'm back again. So let us explore some recent developments in the mainstream that have taken place. There's a movement called Free Tommy. It reminded me, I felt like I was back in the 1960s. You know, white is beautiful. Free Tommy, let their flunky free. Free Tommy. I won't say our warrior because he's not my warrior, but I get the spirit, I get the drive, I get the understanding that Tommy has been convicted, sentenced, and has been imprisoned. And that's neither good or bad, it just is what it is. But there is a misconception or misinformation that's taking place, and it's very important that people on either side of the political perspective or either side of the political spectrum, should I say, that they actually do the research and satisfy themselves, not with hyperbole, not with a rhetoric, not with ethos and Thanos and emotive drives, but actually check the facts. Was this man convicted of contempt of court, or because it's a freedom of speech issue and he was being bold and daring, and in fact his freedom of speech was being challenged? Or was it a case, as more accurate records and research would suggest, that there was a case going on that involved some paedophilia or rape or sexual allegations against particular men of a particular Muslim background, of, I can't remember if they were Southeast Asian, Pakistani descent. I'm not even sure how that becomes also relevant. The fact is that people are accused of paedophilia, a trial's going on. The judge says to an individual who's already been convicted in the past and got a suspended sentence for contempt of court. And you know, contempt of court is a serious issue. Anybody out there who reports his trial no, in fact, he didn't put it that way. The judge has ordered the media, do not report this trial, because you understand how it works. If it's a small trial, they say don't read the papers to the jury, or don't pay attention to TV because it may bias the jury's conclusions. Right, and the decisions that they make at the end of the court, whether to find somebody guilty or to acquit the person. So the judge would normally do that. It's a high-profile case now. It's a case possibly bringing in some attention. People's lives at stake in terms of the victims. People's freedom at stake in terms of the alleged at the time perpetrators. So we want a fair trial, and justice doesn't have to just be done. It has to be seen to be done. Right. So please, Mr. Press Officer, Mr. Journalist, broadcast, print journalist, do not report on this trial, because it could, damage the actual trial and the outcome and prejudice the trial. We need a retrial. So a bag of money lost, and then those people who are looking for justice are left anguishing and having to run a retrial again. So it's a lot at stake. Man's warned, doesn't listen. He cares so much about those people. He will be free after the event, and there's a conviction to talk as much as he'd like to make his same emotive, provocative, divisive, polaristic comments. He could have did that, right? But no, he got to go on Facebook live, innit? He got to do it. He got to do it live. What a gentleman he is, yeah. How thoughtful of those victims who subsequently did get justice, because those individuals that were accused ended up getting convicted. Yeah, so we've got no problem with that. But the fact is, it's not a freedom of speech issue. It's a contempt of court issue. He was already convicted of contempt of court, was on a suspended sentence. He was arrested for breach of the peace because he's going with the most things outside, and the police, the feds, or as the young boy said, the boy them told him not to desist from what he's doing. But he wouldn't stop, innit? He was playing bad, innit? So then he got nicked, right? He got nicked for breach of the peace, and then they said, wait, it's him. And what was he doing out there? For that contempt, the same one that's got that thing riding over his head for contempt of court. And remember, contempt of court is not that kind of crime, yeah? Where you can send the man away and say, put him on bail and release, or send him to bail marshal on remand and we'll deal with it. Nah, contempt of court is done usually straight away, isn't it? You remember in the movies, everybody knows that even from the movies, when they say, I'll do you for contempt, take him downstairs, contempt. They don't say take him out of the courthouse and he's going to come back here next year after remand and few police parents, because you can damage the trial. So that's why he got done. End of story. So now he's in prison. There's Islamic service, there's a Christian service. I don't know which one he's going to tick on his sheet. Does he want a halal menu or non-halal? It's up to him. You know what I'm saying? He's an interesting fella, Tommy, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that want to make an acquaintance with him. I don't think they should be too hard on him. I think the Muslims should show him the best etiquette and the best of manners, and if they want to dialogue with him, in all seriousness, they should let's say invite him to an intellectual discourse. Because I actually don't think there isn't anything supporting intellectually in terms of his discourse. It's an empty stack of cards. There's nothing really there. I'm not allowed to talk. We're not allowed to talk about Muslim rape gangs. But all he does is talk about the same thing that he says he's not allowed to talk about. That's all he ever does talk about. He's not being stopped. He's not being prosecuted for it. He's not being stopped doing it. That's all he talks about online. It seems like half of his life, or best part of his life, is dedicated to that. And you know what? Talking about it doesn't change anything, innit? The point of the matter is this: irrespective of the person's ethnic background, yeah, or irrespective of the person's religious persuasion, philosophical persuasion, or if they've got no religion whatsoever, I don't see how it becomes relevant to whether they've committed a crime or not. Either there's the facts on the table, there's an accusation, there's facts on the table, a person, male or female, goes to trial, and then a jury of their peers decides to acquit them or convict them. And that's the bottom line. And we want them imprisoned, and I don't think we can really argue with that. I don't see how you could turn that into like, unless you're so low that you could crawl under a door with a top hat on. How can you turn it into political? Girls getting raped, getting groomed, you're going to turn it into political football to rile up people's emotions about girls. And so if they were, in other words, if they were Pakistani, because remember, a lot of these gangs, or whether they call them gangs, whatever groups, whatever paedophile groups they were, but whatever you want to call them, let's say a lot of them were Asian, yeah? That's been the hype in the media, a lot of them are Asian, right? Check, yeah? Are you assuming, now I'm using my brain as a psychotherapist now, men that are wired to have an inclination to underage girls, are they going to say that they've never had that inclination until they thought, there's some white kuffar girls that we can go and do that on? Or do you think they might have been fiddling and ramping and, violating younger, any way they can get their hands on and get away with it? You don't think that happens internally? Just as it happens with Rolf Harris, or it happens with Sir Jimmy, was once Sir Jimmy, has been retracted, Jimmy Savile. And why did they challenge Jimmy Savile, the dead man under the ground, when he can't speak for himself and disclose who else was involved in those type of parties, in those type of scenarios, and how he was kept having access to these vulnerable people over and over and over and over and over again? Why was that taking place? It's not just Jimmy as an individual, because he was part of a structure, isn't it? And there was a Westminster sex scandals when it was, involving children's homes, and there was accusations about top judges, top police, and very, very senior people in the British establishment. They tried to set up 2 inquiries and they both crashed. And that had kind of fallen out the headline of the mainstream of recent times. So I'm saying that it's not about what Mr. Robinson is saying, really. It's about a wider issue that there is power and prejudice, and that's where it takes place. And let me backtrack a bit as well. We're not allowed to talk about it. You've been speaking about it. Let me backtrack a little bit as well. Police were involved in Rotherham, yeah? And similar places and similar cases, yeah? So, police were involved. They were notified. The establishment was notified. Social services were notified. School teachers was notified, yeah? Or aware. So there's the education, there's the arm of justice, yeah? And there's the social work department. 3, we can know. The local council in general would have known about this information. And you're going to tell me, even on this documentary, where is Tommy Morrison? 4 major establishments, yeah? For 4 years, yeah? Well, some of it goes back 4 years, but there was you know what I'm saying? Let's say for the Rotherham case, yeah? Some of these things, these sexual allegations and things like that, go on till these women have had these young girls got pregnant, had kids, have grown up children now. People being born out of that very unfortunate situation. We know that sex scandals, as I said, with your Rolf Harris's, your Jimmy Savile's, and on and on and on and on, and the Catholic Church, and on and on and on, and Westminster, and on. Those things go across the board with men who need help, regardless of their ethnicity. But it's been going on in the white establishment, right? Yeah? And it's before Asians was in any significant numbers, or there was any problem with the Muslim community, the Asian community, yeah? This has been going on, right? So, I'm left kind of confused when people saying, the reason why we didn't want to bring a prosecution is that we were scared of being labelled racist. And I thought to myself, wow, that must be a serious situation where people want to do their job. They've been told, imagine you're a police officer and you've been given evidence, but the reason why you don't want to really go and knock on a man's door and go and take a sample and arrest him and basically take certain samples from him and start a prosecution because somebody might say you're racist. And I thought to myself, do you know something? Being African Caribbean, let me just put my thinking hat on because something ain't right. I smell bacon, homie, basically. You know what I'm trying to say? So I smell a pig. I smell something not right. So I said, oh, let me look at, well, history is best qualified to reward our research. Let me look at my own history. I'm not Asian. I'm not Pakistani. I'm not involved in none of anything. So let me just try and be a bit. I wonder if that's possible. How do they do that? I mean, is there other areas? Is there areas of finance and banking and mortgages and where people are scared to be labelled as prosecutors are scared to be labelled racist? So let me just like trying to get my head around it. Then I thought, okay, I can go back to in my lifetime with stop and search, when the sus law was still part of British law in England and Wales. And black men would be disproportionately stopped by the police, arrested, often beaten up. You had the SPG that used to patrol Lambeth and Wandsworth and the surrounding places and were known for beating up and dishing out violence to young people, young African Caribbean people. We still call West Indians in them days, yeah? Although we were born in this country, but just by the fact we're black, we're Western from the Indies, yeah? They had no problem beating us up, and they weren't really scared about being labelled as racist to beat us up back in them days or arrest us disproportionately. And then after the riots in Brixton or the uprisings, depending on your school of thought, Lord Scarman came, did a report, and said they were, he didn't use the word institutional racism, but he used a word that indicated systemic prejudice, racial bias, inequality. He used all these types of language in his report and said that, people of Caribbean, they said, West Indians said black people, especially young people, are being treated unfairly. No evidence of a fear of being labelled racist. Then we saw the death of Roland Adams. Then we saw the death of Stephen Lawrence. Then we saw the Macpherson report. Then we saw the deaths in custody with Joy Gardner and Wayne Douglas. And, I can't recall the names because there's too many names to recall. But those of you who want to do your research, just put black deaths in custody and you're going to see what's going to come up. And I started to reflect and say, but I can't see the evidence of this fear of being labelled racist. this Stephen Lawrence's case where serving policeman sees people coming outside of suspects. He's watching suspects come out with bin liners and bags, and he lost his memory in regards to the power of arrest and to stop and search. His brain got fuzzy. He weren't scared of being labelled racist. After the Macpherson report, influenced by the whole Stephen Lawrence failed investigation, no evidence. We find institutional racism, but no systemic fear of being labelled racist. So I feel like something else was going on in Rotherham that was a bit, and places like that there are people at higher levels that were non-Pakistani, non-Muslim, that were involved or implicit more than just their fear of being racist. I can't buy that. I can't go for that. I smell bacon. I smell a rat. And I feel like Tommy Morrison, I feel like Katie Hopkins, I think they're good at what they do, because you have to remember, in this country, the UK and Britain, there's always been a white working class, and they've always been bamboozled, misused and pimped and hoarded out, by the upper class, the middle class, the educated class. That's always been the case, even when there were people, before there were people of colour here, even when there were time when Britain would have been all white. Let's not go back to the days of the Celts and the Picts and the works of ancient and modern Britons with the dark-skinned people and swarthy people. Let's not talk about it. Just talking about when Britain was all white. 100 years ago. There's been serfs and, Lord of the Manor and the Dukes. They've always treated the what we would call now the working class or underclass, as serfs. That was always their position. But what's happened is, they've always been disgruntled, but they very rarely grew the teeth to really face down the upper class and deal with their inequalities. So we're talking about immigration, as an issue, and it's the brown people and it's the Muslims' fault. But you notice that Tommy's not really talking about the banking sector or the corporations or the political parties and who pays the political parties or how is it influencing democracy. He's not talking about those who set the legislation. He's talking about the guys from Rotherham or the Pakistani community. He's washed, he's weak, he's lily livered. I'm disappointed because even when he's speaking about the Muslims, you notice that he's only picking on the Pakistanis. Has he gone to Edgware Road and said there's too much shisha bars? Is he talking about the Gulf states? You see the pattern though? You see the pattern? You see the pattern like with how Trump, for example, puts Muslim countries on a ban, but then he leaves out Saudi Arabia. Although the people that they give the craftsmanship to for 9/11, if you want to use such an event as such, they would say they found Saudi passports, but you didn't put, you understand, you put in Sudan, and you put in countries where ain't really, known for high GDP. You get what I'm trying to say? They're less, in terms of powers, movers and shakers on the global scene, you kind of like leave them out. So again, Tommy's picking on the Pakistani community, but he ain't really talking about Islam, Muslim communities across Britain. And why isn't he, what's wrong with Adria Road for your Arab? I'm not saying you should, but I'm saying you get to understand something. Sometimes when you're looking and analysing who a person doesn't attack, it makes you understand a bit more about maybe what's playing behind the scene and what's taking place. Just like if you say, oh, ISIS, they're all wild and they're these crazy jihadis who don't care and they want to implement Islamic law at the swoop of a sword. I say, whoa, that's what they're down with. And then like you look at the illegitimate state of Israel, they think, have they even spat at them or put two fingers up or flipped the bird or just been rude or said nasty things against them? They haven't done nothing. And then you say, oh, excuse me, I shouldn't say nothing. I should say they haven't done anything. But the point still stands. They haven't done anything or said anything. So then it says, something just ain't right, mama. Something just not right. So I believe there's a question or two formulated for worthy of interjection, and I'm open to your questions and comments. But maybe they might be reserved for Katie, bombastic as she is and provocative as she is, and as articulate as she is. Maybe we could explore some of that dialogue.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Most merciful, blessed for Muhammad and his pure and his family. It's an action baby in the house. Alhamdulillah. Brother, what can I say once again? Provocative, insightful, knowledgeable, and on time. I believe that this particular topic will lance the boil of hypocrisy that we find among these two. I will go as far as to say that Katie Hopkins and Tommy Robinson are the most despicable characters and traitors to the nationalist cause of Britain, on the same level as Lord Haw was. Yes, who fought for the Germans, a man born of Irish descent, was in the black shirts with Oswald Mosley, then left that fascist movement and then worked for the Germans. This man is a Nazi along with Hopkins and hypocrisy. Why would I say this? Well, maybe you can enlighten us more on this fact. They say they're against a religious body coming to areas like Luton or England and influencing the population of the people. So, for example, Robinson's view is he grew up in Luton, and over the time he grew up as a child, he's unrecognizable now because an invading group of Asians have come in with their shops, with their culture, with their attitude and their religion, which he believes makes them believe they're superior to other people. Katie Hopkins says the same thing. However, Robinson has no problem going to Israel and going into the occupied territories of Palestine, where he's seen the so-called settlers go to an area which was not theirs and do exactly the same thing there that he's upset about in England. Katie Hopkins went to South Africa recently and got kicked out and was upset that the black population in the areas where the white people took off them and stole from them, she's upset that the blacks want it back. This is racism.
And she's a white nationalist.
She's a white nationalist. She's outraged. She's outraged by that. But hold on a minute. You don't like it when it happens in England. But you want them black people to accept the same thing you want to accept in England.
I wonder why.
But both of you have one thing in common. You both claim to be Zionists. Robinson has taken a picture with the IDF on an IDF tank. And the EDL had the St. George equally with the Star of David. They would sing the national anthem.
Far right united.
Yeah, with a flag, with a flag.
With a far right
flag.
Yeah.
That represents what? It represents racial supremacy in a book, an apartheid, which is practiced in Israel right now. According to their book, it says that they were allowed to go into the land of the Philistines and kill every man, woman, child, every woman that does not know a man, to kill them, to burn the land, to kill all the animals.
It save the virgins though.
Kill the virgins though, that's important. And those who were underage.
Save
right?
The virgins.
And and according to the Talmudic writings, it is permissible.
I've read your Talmud.
I read your Talmud, you boy. According to your Talmud, it is permissible to have relations with a 3-year-old child, particularly a Christian, because according to your Talmud, right, your Mishnah, it says if you have a relationship with a child under 3, a Christian child, it's nothing like but pricking the eye and the tears will come out. The child will be reborn in some way, but this is part of your ritual. This is the point I'm trying to say. If Robinson's going to accuse Muslim men, Asian men, and Muslims for having this penchant for underage sex, well, Hitler used the same argument in the 30s against the people who's employing this rent boy, this Israeli rent boy, this Israeli bachelor boy, right? Robinson. He's the most ignorant, stubborn man you could ever meet. Because at the end of this, he knew, as you said, it was illegal. If you respect your country, you get Sharia law, but your own law you have no respect for.
For democracy,
rule
of law.
Yeah. You know as for a fact, freedom of speech what? There's a saying, I think Voltaire said, to know who rules over you, look at those you cannot question or criticize. If I said the Holocaust didn't exist, why I would be arrested for that? So you are aware, if I go on a plane and I go bomb, I'll be arrested. If I go to a cinema and I say fire, I'll be arrested. So you know there's limitations to freedom of speech. So this is not no free speech discussion. You're an ignorant man who broke the law. You've been found to be a fraud. You've lost all your businesses. Right? You're a fraud, you're a liar, you're a thief. You are a criminal. And Katie Hopkins similarly is criminally ignorant and insanely psychopathic.
I don't think she's criminally ignorant as much as she knows what she's doing. I think that she's one of the more fortunate and that she comes from an educated
Remember,
class.
Ignorance means to ignore the facts.
But what I
doesn't mean that you know what the fact is.
And
this woman celebrating black African babies being drowned, and she said we should have got them with machine guns and killed them like mosquitoes. Coming from England, coming over to England, right? So this woman knows the reality of it. She knows the South Africa. She knows the reality. So, but she's happy with apartheid. Yeah. As long as it's white people doing it, she's fine. Yeah. When you came to our country, the Caribbean, African Asian countries, then people fought you. You can see all the movies that you made, how you put down this rebellion and this uprising. Because then people know why I'm chewing them country, innit? But now what happened though? You come with your little madness about, well, you knew you was finished in the war. Hitler bombed you to pieces, right? And you needed us to come and build up your country, innit? Right? You brought us here. You paid for us to come. Invited, you know. You brought us here. Exactly. Because you know the reality is, as the brothers talked about, going to touch on it earlier, your population is going down. Your seed bag is dry up. Your seed bag is suck up and dry out. You ain't producing nothing. And all of your rights for feminism and abortions is killing your little white babies. It's killing your little white man. And all your fluoride in the water is drying out his little seed bag, innit? So your population is dying. And you know in the future ain't enough for you white folks to live. This is what it's all about, Tommy and Katie. Deep down, you know it, innit? Deep down, that's what it's about. I
believe we need to make a part 2. I think from the spirit and the energy in the room and the eye contact I can see from a few in the studio, that I think we need to pause for a cause, and we're gonna come back. We're gonna catch you on the other side for the part 2.
Oh man!
Dialogue, not monologue, but dialogue. So we see you on the flip side. It's been fun. It's been pleasure. We aim to be back, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.